Yeah, this isn't working for me. Let's try something. That's better. Welcome back, friends, to another video. And today I'm going to talk about the 5 mistakes that I made when starting my business. In 2020, we're lucky that DXM has a great network of clients, mentors, and resources that we can pull on when we have ideas. But when we started in 2014, we made a ton of mistakes. We had no idea about how to manage client relations, what the heck scope creep was, how to work with other team members or hire contractors. And because of that, we made a ton of mistakes. So today I want to dive into that part of my life and dig into the skeletons in the closet and share some of those mistakes with you. So hopefully you don't make all these when you're starting your business. So without further ado, we got a new intro to roll. Have a validated business model you can dive into. It's never been easier to start a business. Mistake number 1, getting into entrepreneurship because you want to be your own boss. Now I get it. The whole dream of being your own boss is what's sold to a lot of people to become entrepreneurs. But when we think about it, being your own boss, that mentality stems out of hating being an employee, hating taking orders from other people. When you are an entrepreneur running your own business, sure, you're at the top of your organizational chart because there's no one above you, but you still have to report to people. You still have clients, customers, your own team members. They're all your new boss now. You might not have one boss ahead of you, but you still got a lot more bosses now to answer to. So instead of being your own boss, change your perspective to being your own manager. You've got to manage your work, you've got to manage your tasks, you've got to manage your team members. You still have to be in charge of what's getting done, when it's getting done, and who it's getting done for. Being your own boss sounds like a lot of fun, but being your own manager is where the work happens. Everyone wants to be their own boss, but not everyone wants to be their own manager. Mistake number 2, quitting my job too soon. Now, fun fact about me, before I got into this whole entrepreneurship thing, I had probably maybe 24 retail jobs, and I had a bad habit of like jumping from job to job to job and quitting them like on my lunch break or not coming back or not coming in for a shift ever. And it was a weird time in my life where I would just quit jobs back and forth. Part of me doing this back to back job quitting came from this insecurity I had that to be an entrepreneur, I needed to be fully an entrepreneur, full time, from sunrise to sundown, and working a job meant that I wasn't a real entrepreneur, quote unquote. It took me a long time to realize that being an entrepreneur, again, quote unquote, doesn't mean that you don't have a job, doesn't mean that you're not fulfilling your financial needs or taking care of your house or feeding yourself either. None of that is true. And if you've been sold that lie, you need to get that out of your head. Some of the best entrepreneurs you'll meet are still working, are still in school, have some sort of side hustle, have some sort of thing going on while they're building the business to keep funding themselves. So think back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's basically this pyramid that says that on the bottom, we have these needs that need to be satisfied, like security, financial needs, housing, all that, in order to climb the pyramid to the top, which is self-actualization. That translates into entrepreneurship as well, because if you don't have that fulfillment on the financial side, if you're worried about paying your bills or how you're going to eat your next meal, you can't really build a business or be creative because you're worried about keeping the lights on at home. Another thing that happens when you don't have money in your pockets is you'll do anything for money. I've been in situations where I work with terrible clients doing everything. I would give them the moon, I would promise the whole world for them, but I would get paid in peanuts. And that led to me resenting the client and ultimately not doing good work. It's not sustainable, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and you're gonna hurt the client in the process as well. Don't feel bad about having a part-time job, whatever that looks like, while you're building your business. Mistake number 3, working with your friends way too soon. Now I get it. Look, you wanna feed the family, you wanna get bread with the team, you wanna break bread with them, but transitioning from a friendship to a professional working relationship really fast, a lot of this is going to happen. You're going to butt a lot of heads. Without the proper kind of expectations or roles in place, you can have silly fights around things like who's CEO and who's COO and what does a CTO do and how you split money and all that. And really, none of that stuff matters. It doesn't matter who's CEO at the beginning. Now, Ali and I are 7 years into our friendship and 6 years into running DXM together. And the reason we've been able to stick through it for this long is because we've had open communication. Of course, we've had our fights and we've butt heads over silly things like who's going to be CEO and not doing work and all that too. But it all comes down to open communication and understanding who is responsible for what. Each of you are part of a team and everyone's got their own role. Someone might be really good at design, someone might be really good at tech, someone might be really good at speaking and selling. But if you don't have clarity on who does what and who helps where, you're gonna run into a lot of issues. A good place to start when you're building a team, especially with your friends, is starting with your shared goals. You all like each other. You all wanna work together, but what are you working towards? Knowing that you're all working towards this one goal is a good benchmark to come back to when you have fights. It helps you ask yourself, what are we working towards? Does this fight matter? What are we really arguing about? Is this discussion taking us close to our goal? This will help you and your friends understand where each other's strengths are and amplify them while catching them at their weaknesses too. Mistake number 4, burning bridges. Now, as you grow as an entrepreneur, you'll learn very, very quickly how small the world is. If you do a good job with a client or a customer, the whole world will hear about it. If you do a bad job with a client or a customer, the whole world will hear about it. Now, one of the perks of being an entrepreneur and running your own business is that you get to pick who you work with. You get to be selective about who you spend your time with, who you work with, if they align with your values or not, and that's a huge privilege. But for me, when I was younger, I thought that was an excuse to cut out anyone who missed a payment or wasn't on time with something or just didn't work the way I wanted them to work. Keep in mind, I didn't even have processes that were put in place at that time either. So here's a story, and I'll never forget this one time that really set into my mind how important it is to take care of your bridges, no matter how the relationship went. A few years ago, we had a sales rep working for us, and they had secured this new prospect for us who was looking to build an HR training platform online. And they were super excited because this new prospect had actually worked with our first client. Now, the sales rep was celebrating, they were happy, and to my face, and inside, I kind of knew that this first client I messed up huge with. I really hope it does not come and bite me in the back. And sure enough, a few days later, the prospect came back to us and told us, hey, we're not going to work together at this time. And even though they didn't say it, I had a feeling that they had talked to that first client. So I learned a valuable lesson from that day. Treat every client like your dream client. Even if they're not your dream client, know that any client can be the one that introduces you to your dream client. Mistake number 5. Being afraid of collaborating. When we started doing web design, I didn't want to talk to any other web designers or any other developers or any other marketers because I thought if I tell them what I'm working on or if I get their feedback on this client project, what's going to stop them from going ahead and getting this client themselves? What's going to stop them from going and building their own DXM with their own agency? And 6 years later, I finally realized that great designers just want to do great design. Great marketers just want to do great marketing. There's a lot of headaches that come with running a business, like invoicing, sales, pitching clients, organizing a team that great developers, great marketers, etc., they don't want to spend the time on. They just want to do great work in the lane that they do it in. Now, this is an advantage for you as an entrepreneur because it gives you the opportunity to organize that team. You can bring them opportunities, you can bring them value by working with them directly. Now, if I knew this way back when in 2014, we would have been way ahead of where we are now. But as I've gone through emotions and as I've started to build a small team, I've realized that when you're young and starting out, you think that there's just one pot that everyone's digging from, and you've got to fight for your scraps. But that's not the case. There's a ton of different pies, a ton of different pots, and they're all bottomless. There's a lot in there for everyone to take, and just because someone else gets a client or just because you hand an opportunity off to another designer, you don't miss out. Karma is real and it comes around. Whatever you give, you get in return. Obviously, I've made way more than 5 mistakes in my entire entrepreneurial career, but I don't think you have time to be here for an hour, and I got other things to do too. So we'll just leave it at 5 for now. But if you paid attention, you would have noticed that the key theme in all those mistakes that I made was ego. Being a young entrepreneur, I had this massive ego that I was invincible and that anyone who didn't do things my way was doing it the wrong way, and that I had to be the hero who got all the money and the glory and all that stuff, and that's simply not true. Business is a team sport. There's this great African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. As I've grown, I've learned how small the world is with people that you work with and how important it is that you build a team around you to carry your dream forward. As your business gets bigger and bigger, you can't do it all on your own. You need the cooperation of community partners, of your team members, of clients, customers, and everyone around you to be successful. It's imperative that you keep building a business with this focus in mind of being globally minded and serving your community locally. I've made a ton of mistakes, and I'm sure I'm going to make even more. I keep making mistakes till this day. You will inevitably make mistakes. You'll make a ton of them. Even when you're at an advanced level or you made it to the cover of Forbes, you'll keep making mistakes. What's important though is how you accept responsibility for those mistakes and how you respond to those mistakes. So I want to hear from you. What mistakes have you made, or what questions do you have about things that you might face in the future? Let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. You know we can't end any video without inserting the YouTuber boilerplate at the end, telling you to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Why is that so hard? End take.